My name is Tyler Dew. I am the manager for College Access and FAFSA Outreach with the North Carolina State Education Assistance Authority. We're the primary sponsors for College for North Carolina, otherwise known as CFNC, but we are also the primary managers for the North Carolina Residency Determination Service, otherwise known as RDS. This video is going to show you everything that you need to know about RDS, why to complete it, what to expect while you're completing it, and hopefully we can answer some of the questions that you may have about RDS and why it's there. So first things first, what is RDS for those of you who may not know? And before we dive into the particulars about it, we want you to know that Residency Determination Service, RDS, is part of what we consider the three-step college application process. So when you're applying to colleges in North Carolina, we consider RDS the first step to that process. We'll get into why a little bit later. The second part of that process is going to be the admissions applications, where you actually apply to the colleges and universities that you are interested in attending. And then, of course, number 3 is filling out that free application for federal student aid, otherwise known as the FAFSA, so that you can see what financial aid that you qualify for, whether that be from the federal government or whether that be from colleges and universities that you're interested in going to. So the number one question that I know is burning in everybody's mind right now is, why do I have to do RDS? Well, RDS determines whether you will have to pay in-state tuition or out-of-state tuition. And it also determines whether you can be considered for any state financial aid at any of the North Carolina colleges. So North Carolina colleges are required to have your RDS classification in order to give you in-state tuition, which will save you thousands of dollars on college tuition annually. And they also need it in order to apply any state aid or grants that you qualify for. So that includes Next NC if you're going to a community college or a public institution, and that includes the North Carolina Need-Based Scholarship for private college students as well. So now that you know why you have to complete it, the question is, how do you complete it? And it's actually accessible in many different ways. It's very easily accessible to students and families. So first and foremost, it is an online application. So there is no paper form for it currently. You can find it really in 3 main ways. So the first, easiest and direct way is on the RDS website, because it has its own website. It is ncresidency.org. You can also find it on the College for North Carolina website at cfnc.org, and you actually use your CFNC account information to log in to complete RDS. So they use the same exact account information. And finally, most colleges will have it linked from their application, just because most colleges need it in order to give you in-state tuition and state grants and scholarships. So yes, RDS uses the same exact login information as the CFNC.org website. So if you already have that account, that means you do not need to create an additional RDS account. You'll just log in using the existing CFNC username and password that you already have. If you do not remember your login information for CFNC, or maybe you just create an account a couple years ago, you don't remember if you have one or not, you can just click that forgot your username or password option right there under the login section. If you know that you do not have a CFNC.org account, then you can just go to CFNC.org and create one. It's a very quick and simple process. So what information do you actually need to complete RDS? So we know that each family situation is a little bit different. So the online interview is actually going to ask different families different questions based on that situation. So an example of this might be, your family does not actually own a car in North Carolina. Therefore, RDS might ask you if you're registered to vote in North Carolina instead. The reason why is the goal of this online interview is to identify different acts which demonstrate that North Carolina is the true home for you and your family. So we do have a tip while completing this RDS system. We recommend that you complete this process with your parents or your legal guardians, and not on your own if you're a dependent student, because the RDS system will use your parents' residence and your parents' residence information in order to define your residence. So we do want to provide you information that you can definitely expect to be asked. So if you look at the left column right there, a student and parent social security numbers or other identifiers like maybe an ITIN will definitely be asked. The student and parent address, the length of time that you have lived in North Carolina, and whether the parent has filed state taxes as a North Carolina resident, whether the parent has a car registered in North Carolina, and student immigration information if that is applicable. So types of information that may be requested, so depending on the student's situation, this is what you can expect. Whether the student or parent has a North Carolina driver's license, whether the student or parent is registered to vote in North Carolina, whether they're employed in North Carolina, whether the student attends or has attended high school in North Carolina, whether the family receives any types of social service benefits, and also military information, once again, if that is applicable. So let's say that you have finished the RDS application and you just want to know, all right, what comes next? So the first very important thing that you're going to receive is your residency certification number, otherwise known as the RCN. So this number will never change and it is unique to you, so you make sure that you keep it with you. And this means that you do not have to complete multiple RDS applications for multiple North Carolina colleges. All that you have to do is complete it once, receive this RCN, and then provide that RCN at every single North Carolina college that you apply to. So you will also receive an immediate classification of resident or non-resident once you complete it. And these classifications expire after 15 months. But if you enroll and remain enrolled in a North Carolina college, you will not need to complete RDS again. Now, RDS does have a validation process. So once you are complete with RDS, it will validate the information that you entered in through various state and federal agencies. So what this means that, let's say you indicated your parents filed North Carolina state taxes. RDS will validate that with the North Carolina Department of Revenue. And it does not receive any information other than a simple yes or no. But if we do receive a no from any of the agencies, your classification will switch to non-resident, and you will receive an email indicating the status change. But if that happens, you can also complete a reconsideration or appeal, and we will get into that later, which one to do, why to do it, and the different circumstances about that. In terms of submitting documents, before we get into that process, it's important to note that only about 3% of students who complete RDS are actually required to supply documentation. But in the chance that you are required to submit it, it will appear on your completion screen once you do complete RDS, and you have 25 days in order to submit that documentation. If it's not received within 25 days of you completing RDS, then your classification will switch to non-resident, and once again you'll receive an email notifying you of this. But you can complete a reconsideration and not an appeal, and we'll get into the difference between those two a little bit later. But you will complete a reconsideration if your classification switches to non-resident because you did not submit the documentation within that time frame. But once again, only about 3% of students are actually required to supply any documentation at all. For those of you who will be submitting documentation, you can upload it on the online tool, or you can fax it, or you can mail it. I don't know how many people still use a fax machine, but that option is totally there for you if you choose to do so. The main important thing to note for this is that you cannot email any of the documentation. It has to be either uploaded, faxed, or mailed. Obviously, uploading it is going to be the easiest way, and the online tool makes it very simple for you. All you have to really do is just take a picture of it and then upload it using that online tool, so that simply works as well. If you have completed RDS and you received a classification of non-resident, but you think that is actually incorrect, then you can submit a reconsideration or an appeal. And we'll get into next what the differences between those two are. But to start one of them, you can just log back into RDS and select the reconsideration/appeal button that you will find on the main screen. What is the difference between a reconsideration or an RDS appeal? And there is a distinct difference. So students who will need to complete an RDS reconsideration are ones that maybe made an error entering information. So maybe you guessed at a number instead of looking it up and you got it wrong. Or you accidentally typed in a mistake, like you keyed in an incorrect social security number or birthday. Maybe you missed that documentation deadline, or you missed the 10-day deadline to request an appeal. Maybe you even had a change of circumstance since completing that online interview. That is what the reconsideration is for. Now, for an appeal, these are for students who have a special circumstance. So maybe you need to provide additional information that was not asked of you in that online interview, or maybe you believe your residency classification is incorrect and that your situation supports that you meet state law requirements. For this RDS appeal, students will actually work one-on-one with an RDS appeals specialist in order to review their request for residency. So that's why those two are a little different. Now, RDS does provide students with notifications, so students can receive email and text reminders if you opted in for text. So one of the things you'll receive are in-progress requests. So let's say that you started RDS, but you haven't completed it yet. On day number 8, after starting it, you will be notified that, hey, you need to complete this. That'll happen again on day number 15, day number 24. And if you do not complete RDS within the 25 days, you'll have to start over. And this is with the exception of that RDS appeal. So you'll also be reminded about certain documentation deadlines if you need to submit any documents. You can log back in anytime to submit that documentation, and once again, you can upload fax or mail. Once again, not knowing if many people will fax, but it is there for you. We do have some tips for you for completing RDS correctly. So one thing is you want to make sure that your information is correct and current in your profile account. Make sure while completing the application that you answer each question fully. You do not skip a question. If you do, you'll most likely get a non-resident classification. Make sure you complete the online interview once again with your parent or guardian when possible. Similar to the FAFSA, if you've completed the FAFSA before, you're going to need your parent information for it. Now, one of the most common types of errors is just typing in incorrect information. So what do? Let's say you provided incorrect information, whether a part of your profile, like a wrong social security number, or you just answered a question wrong by accident. Just update the information, confirm your profile information is correct, and then once again, you're going to complete that reconsideration. That's one of the most common that we see. So a little bit of additional information that is important for you to know. When you receive that RCN, it is your responsibility to share it with the North Carolina colleges because we do not communicate directly with the campuses to which you are applying. So the way the process works is that you will supply that RCN to the campus, and then the campus will request the residency determination from RDS. So if you apply to a state school to receive in-state tuition, you give them the RCN, they will request your residency status from us, and we will tell them, yes, you are a resident, you qualify for the in-state tuition. And you are responsible for letting your campus know if there is any change in classification. And RDS does have a ton of resources that is available to students and parents. On the RDS website at ncresidency.org, we have a frequently asked questions page. We have a bunch of different one-pagers on different scenarios and situations. We do have a full RDS guidebook. And we also have a student helpline that you can see that number right there, which is a third-party release, but it is available from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday and 8 a.m. through 5 p.m. on Friday. So a lot of availability if you need any help while you're completing it. And then, of course, you can also email rdsinfo@ncresidency.org. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video. I hope that it was very helpful and helped answer some questions for you surrounding RDS, letting you know what it's there for. Once again, we recommend that you complete RDS first before your college applications so that you can qualify for in-state tuition, save thousands of dollars on tuition, and also so you can receive any type of North Carolina state grant. So once again, we are North Carolina State Education Assistance Authority. We are the primary sponsors for College for North Carolina, otherwise known as CFNC, and we do manage the RDS system. Thank you for watching.